Every piece was somehow not able to be shown for this or that reason. This work here, for example, was drawn for a show at the New Museum for the victims of the World Trade Center studio program who had had their studios destroyed. And I made this drawing. Now, I was violating a rule at the time that you may not make any remarks about what happened. And so they thought I was being insubordinate and therefore said, you can't be in the show. So you could say it was my fault. At the same time, I felt that was the most important thing to say. And I didn't think that I was going to make a remark about the attack or the buildings. I just made a remark about the comparison of two areas. Now, historically, here's the problem. In our society, there are people who are licensed to go see things that are not noticed by anybody. These are called the artists. I noticed a parallel of the division of New York, New Jersey, Pennsylvania, and Connecticut, or New England, and that of Iraq, Kuwait, Saudi Arabia, and Iran. And I thought, kind of interesting. And that was provoked a bit by Osama bin Laden saying that something happened 80 years before. If that image had been shown, and if we had had the kind of publicity I normally did get, say, in North America, and their lead-in thing, oh, here's an interesting remark by Peter Fend, or any kind of press at all, and that would be within range, then there would have been an understanding that there is this kind of parallel. Therefore, what would have happened that in March 2003, the attack on Iraq, launched by U.S. and British forces, could not have been from Camp Pennsylvania, Camp New York, and Camp New Jersey. That would be too obvious, because it would have shown that there is a British plan behind it. Today, in the news, it is reported that the United States is going to lose major investments in Iraq. It's going to have, now apparently made a big mistake having put $700 million into its embassy. It's going to have to downgrade everything. Exxon, the one U.S. oil company in the area, is being more or less kicked out of Iraq. The beneficiaries of the U.S. military activity in Iraq, the whole attack, turns out to be Shell and BP, the French oil company, and I guess the Italian oil company. It's not going to be the U.S. oil companies or the U.S. So, now we have to rethink the whole war in Iraq. Well, actually, it would have been maybe useful back in 2001 or 2002 when I made the drawing to have you realize that there is a kind of game going on called, well, it's a British game, that is allowing this kind of pattern to occur, because they would have then, no other party could have decided to name the attack from Camp Pennsylvania, Camp New York, and Camp New Jersey. That's my thought, at least. And we would have therefore had a much more creative approach to that region, which is indicated below. That you can develop a parallel program, pursuant to U.S. State Department initiatives, parallel practices for rivers. We have one for the Yangtze and the Mississippi, one for the Rio Grande and the Yellow River in China, or one for the Tigris-Euphrates and the Colorado River, for example. They're expanded to the basins, and we can then have some responsible or ideal proposals for the region. We could have had a much more creative approach to that area, based on work already provided to Iran by the U.S. government back in 1978. We could have had also for New York a much more creative approach to what's going on here in the ecosystem of New York. In other words, we didn't have to be subservient to this approach to the world. This is what I think is important, that the artists, by signaling, showing, indicating, if that had been shown, if that had been allowed by the institution, could have then triggered a discourse that would lead to a quite different destination than having spent $1 trillion on a war for nothing.
How did you, in the first place, notice the parallels between these two places?
Well, I knew very well the Persian Gulf because I'd done all the satellite work for about 5 years on the area, and I was very aware of the borders and all that, and I knew very well the arrangements made in 1921 for the delineation of borders. We think about the Red Line Agreement, so I knew all that through a happenstance. Also, as a child from New York State, I was aware that it was kind of strange that the border, the way it tapers down, and you have this funny shape down in New York City, and then you have a tri-state area, a Port Authority in New York and New Jersey, and well, what is this? I mean, why is it New Jersey here? So I had enough, if you will, information in my mind to, after bin Laden made an accusation about carving up the Arab world, to think, oh, that's actually the same form as here. That's really, it's just my knowledge base.